He told her she was nothing, a piece of trash he could dispose of whenever he got bored. Replaceable, forgettable, not even worth a goodbye. For 3 years she took it. She took the silence at the dinner table, the humiliations at company events, the cold, empty side of the bed that told her, every single night, that she had made a terrible mistake trusting this man. But here is what he never counted on. She was paying attention the entire time. Now, 3 years later, Lou Jean is walking into his own boardroom, the one with his name engraved above the door, expecting to sign the deal of a lifetime. And the woman sitting at the head of his table is the one he destroyed. Except she doesn't look destroyed. She looks like she owns the room, because Storyvault family, she does. She remembered every detail of that morning. The way the light came through the penthouse windows. Gray, thin, cold, the way everything in that marriage had become cold by the end. She remembered the sound of his pen scratching paper, the quiet click of a briefcase closing, and then his voice. Flat, unbothered, the way you'd speak to someone you'd already stopped seeing as a person. You were a distraction, May. Nothing more. Sign the papers. 3 years. She had given him 3 years of her life. She had attended every gala on his arm, smiled at every business partner, defended him in rooms where other women whispered that Lou Jean was not a man worth defending. She had believed in him when no one else did. And he erased her in 30 seconds with a single signature. He didn't look up from his tablet once. She walked out of that penthouse with nothing. No settlement. No status. No access to the accounts he'd quietly locked before she even knew the divorce was coming. She had $64 in a personal account he didn't know about and a one-way train ticket to a city where nobody knew her name. She didn't cry on that train. She didn't beg. She didn't call. She didn't send a single message. She sat by the window, watched the city disappear behind her, and she made herself one promise. Storyvault family, if you feel that fire right now, if something in you is rooting for her with everything you have, hit like. Drop a comment with the city you're watching from, and subscribe so you never miss what happens next in this story. Let's see how far this story travels. What Lou Jean did not know, what he could not have known, because he had never actually looked at her, was who Mei Chun was before she became his wife. She was not a distraction. She was a daughter of a collapsed trading family who had rebuilt herself from nothing once before. She understood balance sheets the way other women understood heartbreak. She had spent 3 years watching Lou Jean run his company, sitting in on calls she was never supposed to attend, reading documents left open on desks, asking quiet questions that nobody thought to guard against, because nobody guards against a woman they've already decided doesn't matter. She had been building a map the entire time, and when she walked out of that penthouse with $64, she already knew exactly where the bodies were buried. The next 3 years were not soft years. She worked. She contacted her late father's old business partners, men who remembered her as a child and were willing to listen to her as a woman. She took meetings in borrowed office spaces and closed deals on borrowed time. She was meticulous. She was patient. She was the kind of cold that doesn't burn, it just waits. She found Lou Jin's company exactly where she knew it would be. Overextended, overleveraged, built on confidence rather than foundation. He had made the classic mistake of a man who had never been truly tested. He believed his own mythology. She began buying quietly, shares through subsidiaries, influence through partners. Piece by piece, in transactions too small to trigger alerts, she acquired position after position in the ecosystem his company depended on. By the time anyone in his circle noticed the pattern, it was already too late to stop it. The morning of the merger, Lou Jean was in a good mood. He'd had an excellent breakfast. His assistant had confirmed that the conference room was prepared. The deal on the table would secure his company's expansion for the next decade. He walked in with his usual swagger, shoulders back, jaw set, the particular energy of a man who has never once walked into a room and doubted that he owned it. His team was already seated, but at the head of the table, the chair was turned away from him. The room was quiet in a way that felt wrong. He straightened his cuffs. He cleared his throat. The chair turned, and the air left his body. She looked exactly like Mei Chun, because she was Mei Chun. But her eyes were something he had never seen on her face before. They were not wounded. They were not warm. They were sharp and still and entirely without mercy, the way a scalpel is still before the cut. She let the silence sit for exactly 3 seconds. "Mr. Liu," she said, her voice smooth as glass over stone. "Thank you for coming. Let's talk about your company's liquidation." He laughed. Of course he laughed. It was a reflex, the laugh of a man whose identity depends on never being the one caught off guard. But his legal team wasn't laughing. They were passing documents down the table, and with each page that landed in front of him, something in Lu Jin's face changed. The color drained slowly, the way dawn runs out of darkness, gradual, then all at once. She owned 31% of his primary supplier. She held blocking positions in 3 of his key distribution partnerships. She had, 8 months ago, quietly acquired the private debt note that his company's entire credit structure depended on. The one his CFO had assured him was held by an anonymous offshore entity. The anonymous offshore entity was her. He looked up from the papers, and for the first time in his life, Lu Jin had nothing to say. She leaned forward, just slightly, and she smiled. Not the soft smile she had once given him across candlelit tables. This was something different. This was the smile of a woman who had done the math 1,000 times and never once gotten a different answer. "You told me I was a distraction," she said. "You were right. I was distracting myself. I had so much more important work to do." He had thought he broke her. He had only tempered her, like steel that becomes hardest in the fire that was meant to destroy it. The boardroom was silent. His team looked at their hands. Her team looked straight ahead. And Lu Jin, the billionaire CEO, the man who had erased her with a signature, was the one sitting at someone else's table now. But here is the question, Storyvault family. The real question. She has everything she needs to take his company down to the foundation. Every tool, every leverage point, every piece of evidence his own board would need to remove him permanently. Should she destroy his company or destroy him? Drop your answer in the comments right now. Part 2 is coming, and your votes decide how far she goes. I'm your host. This is Storyvault, and we are just getting started.